Hi, I'm Hayley Dodd, and today I'll be discussing the film 1917 and the genre that it falls into. So, instantly from the title, it is established that 1917 is a war film due to it being 1917, which was a time in which the World War was occurring. Now on to the opening sequence. 1917. Now on to the opening sequence. 1917 begins. Now on to the opening sequence. From research that I've done, I have found out that 1917 is supposedly taken in one shot, therefore there are no cuts or really any editing, no expressionistic type of styles that are used in other genres and even other war films. However, this is kept quite realistic, and through the use of one single take, it can draw the audience in and make them truly feel like they're experiencing what their protagonists are feeling. The shot starts out from a fade from black to an open field. The field is green with white and yellow flowers laying in it. White connotes the idea of purity and innocence, whereas yellow connotes the idea of happiness and tranquility, and in general a field normally symbolises tranquil and calm places for many people to go to, or what they think about when they think of that. The camera pans out from the field to introduce two characters who I'm assuming are the two protagonists of the film. They are both asleep. The idea that they're both asleep during the day connotes the idea that they are probably really exhausted or have a very unique schedule, which all fall into the category of war films and the idea of the work, like the living and working conditions that they're in. Mise-en-scène is used in costume to once again display the category that this film lies in. The two characters are wearing what seem to be oldish-fashioned kind of war uniforms. They have a rifle or a gun on them, and mise-en-scène is used to display the category Mise-en-scène is used to display the category that this movie lies in, being war. Costume is used instantly to present who the characters are and their workforce. They're wearing what seems to be a more old-fashioned type of uniform, war army uniform, and they hold weapons of guns on them to imply that danger could always be about, or possibly to keep that look of more of a realistic kind of, or possibly just to keep the look more realistic to the viewers. A character is introduced and iconography is used here through the use of status and hierarchy. He wakes up one of the characters and tells them that he has something to get to, he wakes up one of the characters and tells him that he has something to go to and to bring his pal that is next to him, who is the other protagonist, who I'm assuming, and the man with the higher status also has a costume of a war outfit. However, proxemics is used with the two men on the floor and the man with the higher status standing up and waking them up to display the different type of status in the army and levels, like sergeant, commander, soldier, all of those. Dialogue is also used when one of the men calls it Sarge. This all falls into the genre of war categories and war genre. A non-diegetic music is used over the top throughout the opening sequence. It is calm and tranquil and really relates and links to the idea of the field, however contrasts with the idea of a war film and how war normally connotes the idea of violence and blood and death. However, linking to the idea, we watch as the two men get up and walk towards We watch as the two men and the camera tracks them as they walk towards what seems to be the base camp. In the background, we see other soldiers. In the background, we see other soldiers, and we see no types of buildings or any type of luxury. They're all seen in what seems to be very dirty clothing, dirty costume, in little groups together. The idea that they're in little groups together could possibly relate to the idea that they're all away from family and these people are the only people that they have, which could link to the narrative and also the protagonist and the friendship, which happens a lot for people who go off to war. They create really close bonds with people as they're away from the people that they love the most. Once again, dialogue is used between the two protagonists, talking about rations, once again also linking to the idea of war and how this all fits into the same category. Rations was a very big issue during the war, as these men who were supposed to be at home farming or doing all the other, you could say, typical tertiary jobs are now at the war places. Therefore, the production of food and other necessities was not at its top priority. So the talk of rations and the joking of it also creates kind of a light-hearted setting for the film, for this being the first opening scene. The lighting is also quite light. It seems to be midday. It's quite high-key lighting, not dark, not gloomy. It doesn't put the viewer in a bad mood or make them wonder what mysteries to come next. It's all quite plain, simple, in your face, like this is what's happening, we're not hiding anything, to be honest. Yeah. As the opening scene continues, we see the characters go into the trenches. The trenches, once again, is a common place where soldiers would lay and where they would protect themselves and where they would live when they were spending their time while at war. In the trenches, we see other characters, other soldiers, all using mise-en-scène of costume to once again connote to the idea that they're always in this idea of working and this place of, you know, being not safe, being unsanitary, like you don't have that security. The idea that the trenches are just like two walls and it dug down, like links the idea that this is not a safe or secure environment, which is very common. It's not like those going to war are living in like high-rise buildings. They're away from communities and they're away from communities, etc. The idea, once again, of iconography is used, of weapons and guns placed on many of the characters that we are seeing, as well as the two protagonists. I predict that in this scene, as it continues, that the two men are going to get told something that could really change the course of the film for them. As characters, or something's happened, or they will have to do something, possibly under the radar, as they go down into this what seems to be little room with very low-key lighting, therefore creating a mystery with someone who with a lot higher status, as they say through dialogue, saying that something must have happened, something important must have happened due to this, because someone with a much higher status has come to where they are and has asked to talk with them. So that's what I predict the narrative is going to be. These two boys are set out on a mission of some sort, or they have to do something collaboratively, whether it's under the radar or it's something that they do with other soldiers and other friends. I think we'll see the evolvement of their friendship, although it already seems quite strong, or possibly new ones, as well as the typical war genre kind of violence, opposing teams, kind of interactions, etc. I really like the look of this film. Personally, I have not watched it, but by watching the opening sequence, it's really drawn me in as a viewer to continue watching and to find out what happens. I would say that this film is not really targeted at younger audiences, probably more mature, older audiences due to what it contains, which is most likely violence, language, life and death kind of situations that you probably would not like to expose to a younger audience at all. I think this film is very unique, surrounding the idea that yes, it's a war film, which is not an incredibly popular genre, but it also uses a technique that's not very common, with the idea that there's no cuts and there's no real editing in terms of the cuts. There may be obviously CGI, but in terms of editing, there's no cross cuts, L cuts, there's none of that sort. I also predict that from what I've seen, it's going to remain quite realistic. There's not going to be like an expressionistic kind of supernatural occurrence, or that being the way to solve a situation. I really do believe that because it's a war genre film, it will remain quite realistic and to the point. And yeah. An opening sequence normally has a traditional character. For a war genre film, an opening sequence normally has a transitional character that connects with both the film and the world of the spectator, meaning us as viewers. The opening sequence establishes the genre, the ideology, the representation, narrative, and the institution of the film as well.